Bruchim Habayim, good Yom Tif, good evening, welcome all. There's a metaphor, a parable, a mashal that was once presented by the famous Hasidic master, the Rebbe Reb Simcha Bunim of Pshischa. He gave the mashal, he told a story, and I guess he relied on perceptive, thoughtful souls to decipher the meaning of the parable. So here was his story. He said once there was a prince who purchased the most expensive and exquisite horse available. This wasn't just a horse. It was fast, it was handsome, it was mighty, it was elegant, it was a beauty, and it was just an awesome horse. He paid an enormous amount of money to obtain the horse. And when he got the horse, in order to protect it, he locked up, he got a special lock for the stable so that the horse would not be stolen. But that night, as he retired to go to sleep, he couldn't fall asleep. He thought to himself, what if he has an experience of Perek HaKoines, where the Ganovim, the thieves, will break in to the stable? This is for all the children here who are learning Perek HaKoines. What if the thieves will break into the stable and steal his horse? So he kept on waking up and running and making sure nobody took his fare, nobody took his horse. But he couldn't sleep. So he went, and for the next night he hired a top security guard to stand by the locked stable and protect his horse. And he went to sleep. But he can't fall asleep, thinking, what if the guard falls asleep? And then the thieves come and take this horse. And to lose this horse would be a tremendous, tremendous loss. So, after a few minutes, he gets out of bed and he runs over to the stable to make sure that the guard is up. And he sees that the guard is sitting, he's up, but he's deeply involved in thought. So he turns to the guard and he says, Was trachst du? What are you thinking about? He says, to keep myself up and busy as I stand alert, I'm thinking about something that's been bothering me for many years. What? He says, when you take a nail and you knock it into the wall with a hammer, so there's a hole. What happens to the material that was in that hole? What happens to it? Where does it disappear to? He says, it's a good question. Continue meditating on that question and stay up. Goes back to bed. Kann nicht schlafen werden. What happens if he figures out what happens to the material in the place of the cavern, place of the hole? He'll fall asleep. So 20 minutes later, he's back there. He sees the man is still engaged in thought. He says, Was trachst du? What are you thinking now about? He says, I'm thinking when you eat a bagel, so there's the bagel, the bread, and then there's the hole in the middle. When you finish the bagel, what happens to the hole? Where did the hole inside the bagel disappear to? He says, gewaltige question, brilliant, brilliant question in life. You continue thinking about it. Goes back to bed, but as you can imagine, he can't fall asleep. He's just too concerned, he's too stressed out. He comes back. What are you thinking now about? I'm wondering, for people who have long beards, when they go to sleep, where do they put the beard? On top of the blanket or under the blanket? You never thought about that question. You don't have that problem. But there's people who have that issue. Where do you put the beard? On top of the blanket or under the blanket? I think where you put yours. So he says, great question. Continue thinking. Goes back, he can't sleep, comes back. What now? He says, I'm wondering if the earth, our planet is round. It's like a ball. So we are in Europe. We're on the top. So why is it that the people that live in America don't fall down? He says, brilliant question. Stay with it. Now he goes back to bed. He thinks he'll fall asleep. He can't. Comes back. The guy is thinking. He says, what now? He says, now I'm thinking about a completely different question. I've been up here all night thinking about different things, alert. And how is it that with all this, somebody managed to break into the stable and steal the horse? Explain how that happened. This was the mashal, the metaphor Rabbinim of Pshischa gave. What was the meaning of it? You can use your own imagination. However, I think, perhaps, it represents one message. There is a word from the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov, was of course the founder of Chassidus, and whose successor, his student, the Maggid of Mezrich, his Yom HaYilula, his yahrzeit is today, Yud-Tes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev. And the day when the Maggid student, the Baal HaTanya V'Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe, Rebbe Shnei Zalman of Liadi, was liberated from Tsarist imprisonment on Yud-Tes Kislev, 1798, Tovkuf Nun Tes, where he was imprisoned because he was, so to speak, the face, the spokesman, the representative of the Baal Shem Tov's derech, the derech of Chassidus. So therefore, Yud-Tes Kislev became associated with the Chag HaGeula, not just of the Alter Rebbe as a person, but of the entire movement of Chassidus. So the Baal Shem Tov says a word that I think in many ways captures one of the great messages of Chassidus, or at least one of the great messages that Chassidus emphasized. It's one of the great messages of Judaism, but it's one of the messages that Chassidus emphasizes in Yiddishkeit. The Baal Shem Tov said as follows. The Gemara says in Masechta Eruvin, Rabbi Yehuda told Shmuel, Shinana, sharp one, Hai Alma Kebehi Lula Damya. Chatoy ve'echol, chatoy vershti. Hai Alma das linen minei Kebehi Lula Damya. Eruvin Dav Chav Beis, I think. The world that we live in is like a chasana. It's like a wedding. It's like a wedding. Grab and eat. Grab and drink. What is the meaning of this? What is he trying to tell his student? What is Rabbi Yehuda trying to tell his student? So there's many different interpretations. The Baal Shem Tov gave this interpretation. He said, at a chasana, at a wedding, lots of things are happening. First of all, the preparations for the wedding. Preparations for the wedding sometimes take not days and weeks, but some people prepare for weddings for months. Time of the Gemara, they prepared for a wedding for 12 months. Between Erusin and Nisuyin, there were 12 months. Even today's day and age, weddings are stressful and people prepare a lot. First of all, there's the gowns and the suits and the outfits and the clothes. There's deciding what type of meat to serve at the meal. Deciding if the chicken is going to be stuffed with rice, what type of rice. The color of the napkins. The men don't know about this, but in the Ezras Noshim, the color of the napkins, the color of the cutlery. Never mind the flowers is another nightmare. And then there's the music. Not everybody gets a beautiful band like this. And then there's, of course, all other wonderful things. The biggest problem is, who do you give the kibbudim under the chuppah to? That can cost a relationship. So there's a lot going on at a wedding. And people come to a wedding. This one comments on the food. This one comments on the gown. This one comments on the flowers. This one comments on the hall. This one comments on the ambiance. This one comments on the dancing. Everyone has what to say. It's possible that somebody should completely lose the essence of the wedding. What's the essence of the wedding? One moment. That's under the chuppah. When the groom, the chassan, turns to the kala, places the ring on her finger and says, Harei at mekudeshes li. And within those words itself, what's the critical word? Li. You're not just betrothed, you're betrothed li, to me. They say from Reb Nachman of Breslov that he once said that there's people that go out of a wedding and they turn to each other and they say, it was gewaldige music. It was a beautiful meal. It was delicious. He says none of them were at the wedding. And then there's one couple that goes out and the wife turns to the husband and says, isn't it wonderful that these two people, the groom and the bride, came together? He says they were at the wedding. So you could be at a wedding and you could see and observe everything, but the nekuda, the core, you missed. You missed. You lost it. What was the nekuda? One moment. Harei at mekudeshes li. The unity or the reunion, we should say the reunion between the groom and the bride under the chuppah. Zog the Gemara, Hai alma kebei hilula damya. This world, life, is like a wedding. There's a lot going on in the world. But you could sometimes miss the nekuda hapnemis. You could sometimes miss the most important, essential story of life. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, the Baal Shem Tov says, Im ein ani li, mi li. If I am not for me, who will be here for me? So he says, what's the Im Ein Ani Li? Harei at Mekudeshes Li. Im Ein Ani Li. If you don't grasp the Li, so mi Li. So who will be here for me? Will I not be forfeiting the whole experience of life? What does this mean in the story of life? At a wedding, we understand there's a lot going on, a lot of preparations, a lot of stress, and this person could sometimes lose sight of the nekuda of the wedding. In life, the Baal Shem Tov said it's the same thing. A person could live their whole life, and life is overwhelming, life is stressful. People work hard, everyone has their challenges, everyone has their struggles, but the nekuda of life is Harei at Mekudeshes Li. The dveikus, the intimacy between a person and Hashem, every single moment, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, a person could be in disarray, running here, running there. Everyone is dealing with deadlines. Everyone has responsibilities and duties. Hayal mekabei hilul adamya. There's a lot going on in the wedding. Don't lose focus. That the nekuda of the wedding, the nekuda of life is, at every moment, Harei at mekudeshes li, im ein ani li mili, your dveikus, your oneness right now with the core of reality with Hashem. Even a Jew who's involved in Torah mitzvahs and dedicates a portion of his life, but also, he's at the wedding or she's at the wedding, but the experience of Harei at mekudeshes li, that sense of intimacy, of oneness, is sometimes lost. They tell an anecdote that there was a fellow, very poor man, and he was starving. He was desperate for a meal. So he comes to a house, a nice mansion, knocks on the door. The man opens up and he says, I haven't eaten anything in 2 days. Please give me some food. He says, I'm sorry, this place is not for people of your caliber. You go to shul, you'll open the refrigerator there, you'll find food. I don't serve people like you. He says, I can't go anywhere. I'm going to die. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Give me something from the garbage. Give me an old piece of fish that you threw out from your Shabbos leftovers in the garbage. He said, that I can give you. Goes to the dustbin, takes out a fazaltzen, a salty, horrible piece of fish, and he gives it to the fellow. The man was so hungry, so he eats it immediately. And because it was such a horrible piece of food, so as he walks out of the house, he faints. They bring him to the hospital. This man comes home in the evening, and he tells his wife, I can't stay home tonight. She says, why not? He says, I have a very important mitzvah to do. She says, what? He says, you remember the guest that I fed today? Unfortunately, he's sick. There's a mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, visiting the sick. So I have to go visit him. Okay? He goes to visit him. The next day, he tells his wife, it's a busy day today. We can't go out for lunch. She says, why? He says, you remember our guest, Nabach sick? He died. One of the biggest mitzvahs is Levayas Hames, to go to escort the deceased on his final journey. I have to go to the Levaya. Shine. The next day he tells his wife, I'm coming home late tonight. She says, why? He says he left children. I have to go do the mitzvah of Nichem Avelim. I have to go for a shiva call. Comfort those who are in grief. Shine. He comes home from the shiva call and he's kvelling. A smile from ear to ear. His wife in 25 years never saw her husband so happy. She says, Shmedel, was is the simcha? What are you so happy about? What is the celebration? You're coming Nebuch from such a tragic place. He tells her, how can I not be happy? I have to say this in Yiddish and then I'll translate. He says, wie kann ich nicht sein zufrieden? How can I not be happy? Zeh wiffel mitzvahs ich hab abgetan mit ein verstunkener Stickel Fisch. See how many mitzvahs I committed, I accomplished with one decadent, smelly, salty, horrible, verhackte piece of fish. 4 of the greatest mitzvahs. Hachnasas archim, Bikur Cholim, Halvayas Hames, and Nichem Avelim. Where do you get such a deal in life? A salty piece of fish to give you so many mitzvahs? So here you have a dramatic illustration of somebody who's busy doing a lot of mitzvahs, but is clueless, completely doesn't get it. But it exists also on more subtle levels, on more brute levels and on more subtle levels. Hayal mekabei hilul adamya. A person could be doing all the right things, but the dveikus, the experience, the feeling, the sensation, and most importantly, the awareness, because emotions fluctuate, but the awareness of the objective of life as a perpetual intimate relationship with Hashem, that in the whole wedding can be lost on some people. The Zohar says that there's two parts to Torah. Zohar Parshas Ba'aloischa. There's Gufa D'Oraisa, Nishmasa D'Oraisa. Zois HaTorah Adam. Torah is compared to a person. Person has a body, person has a soul. You can't live with only a body. Body could become lifeless, could be lifeless, Chalila. You can't live with only a soul. Soul is lofty, sublime, transcendent, ethereal, heavenly. It's the synthesis of soul and body that creates the powerful and beautiful story we call life. So the Zohar says, Zois HaTorah Adam. Torah is via mensch. There's Gufa D'Oraisa, there's Nishmasa D'Oraisa. There's the Gufa Torah, the body of Torah, like the Lashon of the Gemishna and Chagiga. Hein, hein. And in Pirkei Avos, hein, hein, Gufei Torah. So literally it means that actually represents the essence of Torah. But the interesting expression is Gufei Torah, which the Zohar interprets as the body of Torah. And then there's Nishmasa D'Oraisa, the Zohar says, the soul of Torah. The body, that's life. The body. We live with our body. We function with our body. Be'ezer Hashem, la'arichas yomim v'shanim tovos. But the soul infuses the body with vitality, with depth, with passion, with warmth, with life, with chiyus. So Pnimiyus HaTorah, the Torah's Hanister, which the Baal Shem Tov, the Magid, and all of their students, the Baal HaTanya and all of his colleagues, taught, imparted, transcribed, revealed. What was its function? Hayal mekebei hilul adamya. Not to allow the experience of Judaism and of life to become just functional, routine, habitual, which is great, but it shouldn't be a body that is sometimes missing the power, the warmth, the love, the passion, the enthusiasm, the chayus that a neshama has. They tell a Maisa about the two brothers, the Rebbe Reb Zusha and the Rebbe Reb Melech. They were both students of the Baal HaElul of the Maggid of Mezritch, of the Rebbe Rebbe. The Rebbe Reb Melech is known for his Sefer Noyam Elimelech, Reb Elimelech of Lezhensk, and his brother was the Reb Zusha of Anipoli. He lived in Anipoli. He's actually buried, those of you who have been in Anipoli, remember we went to Anipoli in the Ukraine, he's buried right near his Rebbe, the Maggid of Mezritch, because Maggid of Mezritch also passed away in Anipoli on Yud-Tes Kislev, Tovkov Lamed Gimel. Reb Zusha passed away many years later, Shvat, the beginning of Shvat, I think Tovkov Samach, 1800. But Reb Zusha is right near his Rebbe, the Maggid of Mezritch. Reb Zusha and Reb Melech were two saintly Jews, and they were traveling what was called Golus. There were Jews, the Vilna Gaon also did it. There were many G'dolei Yisrael. They would go from city to city. They wouldn't sleep in one place for more than one night. They would wander. They would experience the plight of the Jews. This was a path of self-refinement and of helping other people. Once they were traveling, Reb Melech and Reb Zusha, and somebody informed upon them to the police, and they were cast into a prison cell. In the prison cell, there were many other people, and it was horrible circumstances to the point that there was no bathroom. What was used instead? There was a pail in the corner of the room, and I don't have to describe in detail, that was used for people to alleviate themselves. They slept over as much as they could sleep there. In the morning, Reb Zusha sees that the Rebbe Reb Melech, Rebbe Elimelech, is crying. So he says, "Was weinst du? Why are you crying?" So Reb Melech says, "I'm crying because according to halacha, according to Jewish law, you're not allowed to daven in this place. The reyach, the odor, is so bad, you're not allowed to say brachas, you're not allowed to say shema, you're not allowed to mention Hashem's name. This is not a place conducive for prayer." So Reb Zusha says, "So why are you crying?" He says, "It's going to be the first time I will not be able to daven. The first time, perhaps since my bar mitzvah or more, I will not be able to pray to Hashem." So Reb Zusha says, "No, there's a first time for everything. Why are you crying?" So Reb Melech says, "I'm crying because for me, prayer in the morning is the most important moment of the day. It's the moments when I establish dveikus, when I establish connection, a relationship with my own essence and with the essence of all of existence. with my neshama, which is a chelik elokam imal, with my soul, which is a fragment of God, and with the essence of all reality, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then my day can be functional, powerful, wholesome, real, authentic, meaningful. But without davening, I'm like in disarray, I'm fragmented, I'm not connected to the core. So Reb Zusha looks at Reb Melech and he says, brother, I completely beg to differ. I'm obviously not saying it verbatim, I don't know what the conversation, but there's a Chassidim told over the story, just the Teichen Einyan. And they obviously didn't communicate in English either. Brother, I dramatically differ with you. I completely disagree with you. Why are you not davening today? You're not davening today because the Shulchan Aruch, the halacha says, Chazal say that you're not allowed to daven in this place. So you're not davening today because that's what Hashem wants. So by not davening, you're fulfilling the divine will. By fulfilling Hashem's will, you connect with Hashem. So every day you connect to Hashem through davening. And today you connect to Hashem through not davening. The Zalbe Eberste, was hat geheißen davenen, hat heim geheißen nicht davenen. The same God who wants you to daven today, He told you not to daven. That's a connection. You're connecting to Him through not davening. Melech says, gewaltige Wort. Gewaldige Wort. So instead of crying, he starts singing. Since they were two chassidim, so you understand, within a few minutes they were dancing. So there was a matzav. Within 5 minutes, you had to put him in a Simchas Torah, in a dungeon with these two brothers. Doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot. But chlal for chassidim, especially for tzaddikim, to get them on fire to dance. So they're dancing. Megeta tencel. And they're dancing with passion. No, the Gentiles see two chevra dancing. Everyone wants entertainment in prison. So they join the dance. So before you know it, there was a whole matzav created in that dungeon, Reb Zusha, Reb Melech in the center, with a bunch of Gentiles enjoying the dance. The prison warden is outside, and he hears a commotion. He runs into the cell, and he sees, Celebet Zelustik und Freilich, Simchas Torah in Shtetl. Everybody's excited, they're dancing. He calls over one of the non-Jews there, he says, what's this great joy, what's the dancing here? The guy says, I don't know, the Jews started it. Of course, the Jews are always guilty, but things don't change much. They instigated it. He says, I understand why are they dancing? What's made them so happy in this place? The man says, trust me, I don't know. He says, you tell me right now what caused them to dance. If not, I will lock you up in solitary confinement. So trembling, this man points to the pail, to the bucket in the corner of the room. The prison warden says, could you explain to me how that bucket filled with human fertilizer can generate and inspire a dance? He says, don't ask me to explain it to you, but somehow they told us that as a result of that bucket, they developed a new type of relationship with God. There was a pre-bucket relationship and a post-bucket relationship. A whole new type of experience of relating to God as a result of that bucket, and they're very excited about it. The guy says, really? I will teach those troublemakers a lesson. He lifts up the bucket and he throws it out of the room. The Zusha turns to the Melech and says, Bruder, jetzt kannst du anheben davenen. Brother, now you could start davening. It's more than a story. There's a profound message in the story. A lot goes into a wedding, but the nekuda is always dveikus. A relationship is created. In life, lots is happening. How many appointments did you have today? How many appointments are you going to have tomorrow? How many deadlines? How many issues? How many issues is everybody dealing with? Every person sitting here or watching it wherever you are, in our mind is so much going on. Especially if you didn't shut your iPhone. Especially. The Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya once said, Derech Hagav, he said, it says in Krishma, Va'avadetem meheira. Right? So you know what he said Va'avadetem meheira means? Medaf falidin de meheira. People have to lose the attitude of meheira. Meheira means schnell, fast. People are not present. Everything is meheira. Va'avadetem meheira. You got to get rid of the meheira. You have to learn how to be somewhere. You have to learn how to be in a relationship. It's an interesting mitzias. I was at a dinner somewhere, Amalava Malka. I saw there was a mother, a father, a daughter, and a son eating Malava Malka at one table, and everybody was on their phone. Could be they were even texting to each other. That I don't know. And I realized what's pshat, connected but alone. Completely connected but alone. So there's so much going on by everybody. And it's very easy to lose the nakuda, the point, the objective, the aim of all of life, of all of experience. The neshama, the soul. The body has lots of things going on, lots of limbs, but the soul, the energy, the chiyus, the dveikus, hayalma kebehilul adamya. So this is one of his great messages. How is the relationship expressed? Every moment it's different. Sometimes the relationship happens through davening. And sometimes, as Hashem told Moshe, Yashikoichecha sheshibarta, sometimes it happens in very different ways. Sometimes the relationship happens through different journeys. Every person has their own journey. Sometimes the relationship happens through not praying, but they're always in a relationship. They're always in a relationship. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Rabbi Yoel. You know, let's do Pada B'Shalom. Can we do?
You do it already?
Why not? You want to?
What?
We warm up a few minutes. That's the picnic now.
No?
Yud-Tes Kislev.
Okay, so go. Go whenever you go. Take it away.
All right.
Avinu Malkeinu Eliyahu Melech Avinu Malkeinu Elanu Melech Eloto Eli Yud-Tes Kislev, one of the beautiful nigunim that was composed for that event was the niggin Pada B'Shalom Nafshi. Why that niggin? The first Yud-Tes Kislev was in the year Tovkuf Nun Tes, 1798. It was on a Tuesday, just like this year. This year it's also on a Tuesday. The Balatanya, when he was liberated, it was a very serious situation because it wasn't just his life was in danger. The whole movement was really in danger. The opposition was fierce in ways that it's very hard to describe in nowadays when that opposition is nearly gone, and even that which exists is usually based on ignorance, not substantial ideas. So the Balatanya wrote a letter to two people, Reb Levi Yitzchak of Baditchev and the Rebbe Baruch of Mezhebush, whose yahrzeit is Chai Kislev, Yud-Tes Kislev. Reb Baruch of Mezhebush, who was a grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, the son of his daughter Adol. And in the letter he writes to Reb Baruch of Mezhebush, he says, it was Tuesday, and I was sitting in my cell in prison. It was in Petersburg, and I was saying Tehillim. Now you have the Tehillim, the way it's divided for the month. So during 30 days, you say every day, Yom Tashir, Yom Tehillim. But there's Tehillim, the way it was divided over the 7 days of the week. And there's sometimes Jews who say every day of the week, they finish the Tehillim every week. Sunday is the Yom Rishon. When the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shnei Zalman of Liadi, was in prison, he was saying Tehillim not only the way it was divided by the month, but also the way it was divided by the week. The Tehillim of Tuesday includes Kapitel Nun Hey, chapter 55. So he writes to the Baruch of Mezhebush, I was saying Tehillim, I was in the middle of Kapitel Nun Hey, Ukeshamarti, Keshakarisi, this was his language, these are his words, I believe. Keshakarisi es haposik, Pada b'shalom nafshi mikrav li, ki b'rabim hayu imadi, koidim she'ischalti, posik shel acharav, yatsasi b'shalom Hashem shalom. Right after he said that posik, David HaMelech says, Hashem liberated my soul in peace from the war against me, and all the multitudes of people supported me. He says, when I finished that pasuk, I was set free, literally set free. This was Tuesday, Yud-Tes Kislev Tovkuf Nun Tes. So Chassidim composed a beautiful niggin on the words Pada B'Shalom that's sung every year, literally around the whole world, where the chagigas, the celebrations of Yud-Tes Kislev are celebrated today. It's mamash in every corner of the world. So this niggin, Pada B'Shalom, is the traditional Yud-Tes Kislev niggin where David HaMelech expresses his gratitude to Hashem for liberation. And what type of liberation? Liberation doesn't only mean somebody who's physical in imprisonment. Of course, that too. But liberation of all types of meniyas ve'ikuvim, all of the obstacles and overwhelming fears and concerns and addictions and cravings and habits and issues and struggles. Kol chad lefim shura delay. So Yud-Tes Kislev is an eis rotzen for geula, for liberation on every level. You could sing along. Schämt sich nicht. Ki berawabim hayu imadi adam shalom nafshi mikrav li Yishmakel ve'yavaneh Tov mishemen v'heima v'heima psichos. I hashlech Allah Shem Yehavecha Behu Yechalkelecha La Yitein Le'Yaylam Moit Latzadik V'yata Elohim Toyridem Lever Shochas V'yata Elohim Toyridem Lever Shochas Aneshei Damim Omirma La Yechetzu La Yechetzu Yemeyem Anashei Damim Damim Omirma La Yechetzu La Yechetzu Yemeyem Hayre Yidden. Everybody knows the Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos, the Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos about the holiday that we will celebrate next week. Mezuzah mimin v'ner Chanukah mismoil. You put the mezuzah on the right side of the door and the Chanukah menorah on the left side of the door. But why? Why? If the mezuzah is on the right side of the door, why shouldn't the Chanukah menorah be on the left side of the door? So in some places it says both sides should be, Mukafim should be surrounded by a mitzvah. So you have the mezuzah on the right, the Chanukah on the left, and the person with his tzitzis, with his mitzvahs, lighting the Chanukah menorah in the middle. You want to make that a little lower? I can hear myself. Which is a good thing to listen to yourself. Mit a wissen wenn the nekuda, yeah, the nekuda. But it's an interesting thing, like why suddenly here are we looking for this on the right, this on the left, me in the middle? Why by Chanukah? You could say the right is the prominent side, the Chanukah should be on the right. I once saw a word from the Chidushei Harim, Schusa Yogan Aleinu, Rebbe Chananya, the first Ger Rebbe, Yitzchak Meir Alter. He says a very powerful word. But in order to give it context, let's change the subject for a moment. Yosef HaTzadik, in Parshas Vayeshev, this week's Parsha, goes to visit his brothers. His father sends him, go visit your brothers in Shechem. Seek out their welfare, look how they're doing, examine how they're doing. And Yosef goes. Problem is he gets lost. So the pasuk says, "Vayimtze'ehu ish, v'hinei soya b'derech." Yosef is found by a man, and he's lost. A blungetzich. Vayishalehu ha'ish leimer mata vakesh. So the man asks him, "What are you searching for?" So Yosef tells him, "Es achai anochi mevakesh." I'm searching for my brothers. Who is this man that encountered Yosef lost? Who is this man? So Rashi says that this man is Malach Gavriel. Shenemar, he brings a pasuk, I think from Daniel. V'ha'ish Gavriel. Sefer Daniel, it says the man Gavriel. So you see that Gavriel is called an Ish. So from here Rashi deduces, based on a medrash, that who was this man? This man was Gavriel. I want to ask you a question. The parsha before Vayishlach, there's also a man who encounters somebody. Same word. Vayivaser Yaakov Levadoi, Vayeavik Ish Imay Adalois Hashach. A man wrestles with Yaakov. Yaakov remains alone in the middle of the night, and a man, an Ish, wrestles with him till dawn break. What does Rashi say there? V'amru Rabbi Seinu Zeh Sari Shaleisov. This is the Sar, the spiritual minister, the guardian angel of Esav. Rabbi YY, isn't this blatant discrimination? In both places it says the word Ish. Same word. I would expect in Vayeshev Rashi says, who's the Ish? Well, Ish Gavriel. So in Parshas Vayishlach, the same Ish. Tell me, it's Gavriel. Or the other way, both of them are the minister, the angels of Esav. It seems so unfair, unjust. The Ish in Vayishlach becomes Esav's man, Esav's angel, and the Ish in Vayeshev is Malach Gavriel. What's Pshat? What's the meaning of this? The meaning is this, my dear friends. In both situations, there's a man alone in the world. Vayivase Yaakov Levada, Yaakov is alone. And as the Dagel Machane Ephraim says there, There's a nekuda in which every person is alone. There's a nekuda in life, there's a place in life where everyone is alone. Even if you have good friends or acquaintances. But there's still, even if you have a good friend, it's very rare that people, mamash, have a real friend. But even if you have a good friend, there's still a place in which you're levadai. You are you. In order to know you, I have to be you. In order to know me, I have to be me. Yaakov is alone. Vayivasa Yaakov Levad. He has a huge family, but he's alone. Yosef is also alone. He's eblunget sich. V'hinei soya basada. He's lost in the field. Both are encountered by a man. There's an ish that meets them both. But look at the difference. In Parshas Vayeshev, the ish, the man, the mysterious man, encounters a 17-year-old boy lost in life, lost on the road, lost on his voyage to his brothers. He sees a vulnerable youngster lost. What does he do? He places his hand on his shoulder and he says 2 words. Matevakesh. Tell me, what are you searching for? Let me help you find what you're searching for. And Yosef tells him, "As achai anochi mevakesh." All I'm looking for is brothers. I'm looking for brothers, my brothers. As achai anochi mevakesh. And the man tries to guide him and direct him. He tells him there's going to be now a new chapter in your life where you're going to have to discover yourself in ways that you never had to. This is one type of ish. There's another ish in Vayishlach. He meets Yaakov all alone. What does he do? You see a vulnerable man alone, Vayavek. Pounce on him, bully him, beat him, try to kill him or at least maim him and dislocate the joint of his hip, the gidanasha, the sciatica nerve. Zakt Rashi, this ish is Malach Gavriel. And this ish is Sarah Shalais. The same ish. Both meet a man who's vulnerable, a woman who's vulnerable, a teenager who's vulnerable, an older person who's vulnerable, alone, solitary, struggling, lost in one way or another, physically, practically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. But what's your response? Is your response motivakej? Was suchst du? What are you looking for? Let me be here for you. Let me help you. Or is your response, you're alone and vulnerable? Awesome. Great opportunity. I can take advantage of you. I can destroy you. I can manipulate you. I can use you the way I want to use you. You have people who are in a position of leadership, all types. An educator, a teacher, a parent, a rabbi, a therapist, a social worker, a guide, a counselor, an advisor, whatever it is, a mentor, a Rebbe, or a yeshiva. And the youngster is lost. And one of them looks at the youngster and says, Matevakesh. And the other one, Vayavek. I'll take advantage of you. I'll use you for whatever I think is the best. Zok Rashi, this is Sarah Shalesov, and this is Malach Gavriel. 2 very different types of people. Now, the Baal Shem Tov once said, I'll say it in Yiddish and translate, An Neshama kommt herab auf der Welt, vor 70, 80 Jahr, nor kedei zu teuvetan Ayiden begashmias, or befrat beruchnias. A soul comes down to this world for 70, 80 years, and the purpose of the soul coming down into the world is to do a favor for another Jew, a material favor, a practical, physical favor, or especially a spiritual favor. So it's possible that a soul comes down and accomplishes many things, but the ultimate objective of why the neshama came down was to meet one Jew who's lost and to say, Matevakesh. And if instead I take advantage of the situation, I'm not only depriving that person from what they need, I'm also depriving my soul from the fact, perhaps, the purpose for which it came down into this world. Somebody once asked the Baal HaTanya, what's greater, Avos Hashem or Avos Yisrael? Loving Hashem or Avos Yisrael? So he said it's the Zel Bezach. Because when you love a Jew, he said, Oihev Masha Ha'ohuv Oihev. Imagine I tell you, I love you, I mamish love you. I really hate your kids. I hate your kids, I hate your wife, I hate your family, but I love you. I love you. Okay, Eichme love. You love me on your terms. If you really love me, how can you not love that which I love? If I'm crazy about this person and you say you're crazy about me in a good way, you love me, so how could you really not love that which I love if you really love me? Unless you don't really love me, you just love your version of me, which is often what love is. Do we love other people? Do we love our version of other people? It's a very big difference. Right? The Jacobson Yoeli Lebovits says, Kol ava chayzeres el ha'oyev. B'sol Salanta once saw a Jew eating chicken with a lot of passion. So he says, why the passion? The Jew says, I love chicken. So B'sol Salanta says, really? You really love the chicken? He says, absolutely, I love chicken. So he says, wow. Because of your love for this chicken was killed, slaughtered, plucked, cut, sauteed, barbecued, broiled, and now it's going to be converted into your blood. Is this what you do with everybody you love? As achon veiv, this is your interpretation of love. You don't love the chicken, you love your taste buds. You love your abdomen. The chicken happens to suit it well. So the Baal HaTanya said, you love Hashem, you love Torah, v'haftas Hashem, you mamish love Hashem. So how could you not love every Jew? If Hashem says, Ahafti eschem amar Hashem, kina Yisrael v'yaveyu, so how could you not be in love with them? So that's the real, in other words, Avos Yisrael is a taich from Avos Hashem. The real Avos Hashem, it expresses itself even deeper in Avos Yisrael. Now I'm going to tell you a vart, once heard from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, a hafladik vart, I think, and very characteristic of the person who said it. You'll hear in a moment. What's the beginning of Golus? Here you have the opposite extreme. What's the beginning of Golus? The beginning of Golus, Chazal say, begins with Yosef being sold to Egypt. He becomes a slave. Ultimately, his father will come down, his brothers will come down, the Jewish family will relocate to Mitzrayim, and it will develop, it will morph into the first exile of Klal Yisrael, the Egyptian exile, for 210 years, till Pesach, till Yitzias Mitzrayim, till the Exodus. So how does Jewish exile begin? Yosef being sold into slavery by his brothers. But why was he sold? First they wanted to kill him. Hine bala chaloim is ba. Let's kill him. Came Reuven, and Reuven said, no. Don't kill him. It's our brother, don't kill him. What should we do? We'll throw him into one of the pits. And the Torah says, the Pasuk says, why did Reuven say this? Laman, hatzil oisem miyadam lashiva yelav. He had one objective. They'll put him in the pit, they'll go away, he'll take him out, and they'll bring him back to his father. That was the plan, perfect. So what happened? How was he sold? So the Torah hints, Vayesh v'lecha lechem. They put him into a pit, they sat down to eat. In the middle of the meal, the Yishmaelim, the Midyanim, the merchants come by. Yehuda suggests, let's sell him, they sell him. They sell him. There's the fascinating Rashbam. The Rashbam learns, literal pasuk, if you read it, it's not, the Shvatim didn't take him out of the pit. Right? The Yishmaelim took him out of the pit, they sold him. Okay, but Rashbam has a very original interpretation in the story, not like Rashi. It's not part of our discussion now. But they were eating. Now we understand. Reuven wasn't there. It says Vayashav Reuven. Reuven comes back. He rents his clothes. Hayela deinenu va'ana niba. The child is gone. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So the question is, Rashi asks Chazal, where was Reuven? Where was Reuven? Why wasn't he there? Everybody was there. He wasn't there. How did the plan get foiled so heavily? The answer is because it says they sat down to eat. It's like Rashi, in one of the interpretations, Reuven was fasting. When there was a meal, he couldn't eat. Why was he Why would Reuven be fasting? So Rashi says, Reuven haya asuk b'sakai u'b'tanisai al shabilbul yitzui yaviv. When Rachel died, almost a decade earlier, 9 years earlier, Yaakov placed his bed in the tent of Bilhah, Rachel's maid. Reuven felt this was an insult for his mother Leah, so he interfered in Yaakov's intimate life, so to speak. 9 years later, he was repenting for this mistake. How? By fasting. 9 years later, Reuven is still fasting. I don't know if it was Mondays or Thursdays. I don't know if it was from Shabbos to Shabbos. I don't know if it was every day. I'm not sure it says. But 9 years later, he's fasting, repenting, doing tshuva. For what? For interfering in his father's intimate life. Al shabilbil yitzui yaviv, in the terms of Chazal. The Gemara says in Shabbos, Nun hei kaloi meruvin chateini alatoya. Somebody who says Reuven was just a sinner, vayishkav, he's making a mistake. But he interfered in Yaakov's private life, and he was doing tshuva 9 years later. And that's why when his brother sat down to eat, he went to do his boidedus, or his boinenus, or dveikus, or tshuva, whatever he was doing. Reuven was working on his spiritual perfection to forgive, to gain forgiveness for his mistake. Because of that, Yosef was extracted from the pit and he was sold into slavery. By the time Reuven came back, it was too late. Said the Rebbe, think about this. What is the beginning of Galus? That Yosef was sold. But how was Yosef sold? Reuven wanted to return him. Because Reuven wasn't there. Why wasn't Reuven there? Because he was working on his spiritual perfection. So he said, the beginning of Galus, the beginning of exile, doesn't happen necessarily from bad people doing bad things. The beginning of Galus occurs because of great people and holy people who are busy working on their own spiritual perfection. Aber wie kennst du sich äußig sein in deine Madreges und in dein Schleimus, wenn du weißt, dass ein Jiddisch Kind liegt in a grub? How is it possible that you should dedicate your time, your resources primarily to focus on your own shleimus, on your own spiritual perfection, when there's a Jewish child lingering in the abyss, when there's a Jewish child who's in a pit with scorpions and snakes? How is it that you can dedicate your life to focus on your greatness, on your Olam Haba, on your shleimus, which is awesome? It's an extraordinary, we're talking about a great person. That's the beginning of Golus. The beginning of the consciousness of exile is that I'm capable of going into spiritual seclusion. I'm working on my perfection. When there's a Jewish child languishing in the pit, whatever that pit represents. What's the beginning of the consciousness of Geula, of redemption? When I will not allow that to happen. True, I need to fast. I need to perfect myself. I have to fix my sins. I need to reach my shleimus and my godless. There's a Jewish child in a pit. You have to go over and say Matevakesh. That's the ish. Matevakesh. What are you looking for? That's the contrast. Come now back to Ner Chanukah. Zok the Helike Chidusherim. He says Hazoi. Why do we put the mezuzah on the right side of the door? So what does the Gemara say? What do Chazal say? Uchsaftom al mezuzos beisecha. Beisecha means your home. Beisecha is also explained as derech biyoscha, the direction from which you enter. So as you enter, you put the mezuzah bimin on the right side of the entrance, and that's the halacha of mezuzah. Basically, the place that you enter, the direction you enter, you place it on the right. It says the function of a mezuzah is to represent the presence of Hashem, the Shekhinah in the house. So you focus on your entering. But now let's go to Chanukah. What's the purpose of Chanukah? The Gemara says, Tana in Masechta Shabbos, the second chapter of Mem Adlikin. Tana Rabbanon, Ner Chanukah, mitzvah, la'anicha al Pesach beisim b'chutz. What's the mitzvah of Chanukah? To place it at the door of your home outside. Why outside? Unless it's a time of danger or the flame will not be able to endure. Why outside? Because the objective of Chanukah is Pirsume Nisa. To bring the message of Chanukah outdoors, out there, outside of my own cubit, of my own cocoon. So the Chidush Yorim says, Ner Chanukah is not on the left, it's on the right. It's on the right of Derech Tzeisecha. The mezuzah focuses on you coming in, going into your house, so it's on the right. The Ner Chanukah is also on the right. It's on the left when you're looking from the perspective of entering the house. When you're looking from the perspective of leaving the house, it's on the right. And the objective of Chanukah is to leave, to go out, to illuminate that which is outside of you. To be able to go over to that Jew and say, Matevakesh, what are you searching? What are you searching? So we have to know that your neshama comes down sometimes just to be able to tell somebody, Matevakesh. And you'll find out that he's usually looking for a brother. He's looking for a brother or a sister. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. a story, beautiful, beautiful story, about a Jew. His name was Reb Shmuel Munkus. Shmuel Munkus was one of the great Hasidim, disciples of the Baal HaTanya, of the Baal HaGeula, of the Alter Rebbe. He had a wonderful, wonderful sense of humor, and he was quite a character, but a very inspired and deep soul as well. You know, sometimes people with a great sense of humor, it covers up on their depth, but they're really very deep. And Reb Shmuel Munkus became mamish one of the greatest chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, of the Rebbe Shnei Zalman of Liadi. But here's the story about the first time they met. The Alter Rebbe lived most of his life in a little town called Liozna. Liozna, a little city at the border of Belarus and Lithuania, which is why when he came to the Maggid of Mezrich, the nickname with which they coined him was the Litvak. He was the Litvak, the Lithuanian, because he came from that region. So he lived in Liozna for much of his life. That's where he founded his movement, that's where he led, that's where he taught. Later he relocated towards the end of his life to Liadi. But for most of his life was Liozna. It was called the Liozna Maggid, the Rav. Shmuel Munkus arrived in Liozna in the middle of the night. Middle of the night, where do you go? There was no Motel 6 in Liozna, and there was certainly no Hyatt or Hilton in Liozna. There's still no Hyatt or Hilton in Liozna if you go there. It's barely a paved road. It's one of those still little towns that looks the way it was. You know, in Russia you have a lot of those towns. It comes the middle of the night, so you need somewhere to stay. So he's searching for a home that has a mezuzah, but also has the light on. This is before electricity, but they were burning lanterns, burning flames. And he sees a home in which there was light. So he goes to that home and he knocks on the door. It happened to be the home of the Baal HaTanya of the Alter Rebbe, who was up in the middle of the night. He was learning. So the Alter Rebbe comes to the door. Reb Shmuel Munkus greets him. Alter Rebbe says, "How can I help you?" So he says, "Ich such a Platz wo zu nächtigen." I'm looking for a place where to lodge, where to dwell, where to remain. So the Alter Rebbe says, "Why did you have to come to this house?" He says, "Ich such a Yiddische Stub." I'm looking for a Jewish home. Alter Rebbe says, "Da andere Yiddische Stube. There's other Jewish homes. Why do you have to come to this home?" So he says, "Das ist nicht die Yiddische Stub. This is not a Jewish home. I can't be here." So the Alter Rebbe says, "In Mitternacht, middle of the night you come?" So Shmuel Munkus says, "Ich habe gemeint, aber Rebbe in a starke Nacht." I thought by a real Rebbe there's no night, there's no darkness. So the Alter Rebbe says, "I'm not sure this home is for you. I think you should stay in another home." So he says, "No, I want to stay in this home." So the Alter Rebbe says, "Ich will rufen dem Goy, soll der raustreiben." I'm going to call my Gentile who works in the house to chase you out of there. So Shmuel Munkus looks at him and says, "Rebbe, mein Goy is a sach starker wie your Goy. My Goy is a lot more powerful than your Goy." So the Rebbe opened the door, and that was the beginning of their relationship, which was a very deep and close relationship. At first glance, it's a very strange story. Hospitality is a basic mitzvah on any Jew. Never mind a tzaddik, never mind a Rebbe, a Manig Yisrael, such a leader. Shmuel Munke says, I want to stay in your house, stay in my house. It's this whole debate. Why do you come in the middle of the night? When should have he arrived in the middle of the night? What should he do? Not arrive in the middle of the night. Make the sun stop. Sun's set for him. He's not Yaakov Avigail. What should he do? Go to another house. What's wrong if he's in this house? And then the strangest thing is, I'm going to call my guy to expel you. Who speaks this way? Here's a guest. You don't know him. A Yid, an Erlich Yid comes into your house. You invite him in. Give him a bed. I'm going to tell my Gentile to expel you. And then he says, mine is stronger than yours. He says, oh, now you can come in. So the meaning of this story is, of course, their conversation was happening on two levels. There was the basic conversation about a place to stay, but it was really a much deeper conversation. And the following insight, I wouldn't understand the nature of the conversation. But once the Lubavitcher Rebbe told over the story, and he explained what the conversation was about. I guess it takes one to know one. One Rebbe could understand another Rebbe. So he explained what the conversation was. So he went into a very deep explanation. I want to glean one point. The derech of Chabad, the path of the Alter Rebbe and Chabad, is a very strenuous one. It's a very... Alter Rebbe had a different shita in Chassidus than most of his colleagues and friends. For most of them, the way they gave over Chassidus were short tidbits, short insights. You look at all the svarim of the other students of the Maggid, Moirei Nayin, Priya Oretz, Kedushas Levi, Noyam Elimelech. These are the basic books of Chassidus of the first generations of authors, the students of the Maggid of Mezrich, really the founding fathers of all the branches of Chassidus. The Torahs of the Chozer of Lublin, of Reb Zusha. Most of them have little powerful, beautiful, heartwarming, inspiring vertlach on the Parsha, on Yom Tov. They focus at Lechatchil on the Parsha. Bereshis, Noach, Lech Lecha, Chanukah, Purim, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkos, Moir V'Shemesh, Tiferet Shloimeh, Be'er Mayim Chai, whatever sefer. Even Sfasemes. Its focus is the Parsha, the Yom Tov, short, a paragraph, 2 paragraphs. Sometimes Moir Einayim a little longer, a page, 2 pages, sometimes Dushas Levi a little longer. The Alter Rebbe called his shita, his movement, Chabad, Chachma bin Adas. There was a reason for this. Because he believed that the real path to enlightenment, the real path to appreciate Yiddishkeit in the most sophisticated and profound way requires that the spirituality that Kabbalah and that the Baal Shem Tov introduced shouldn't only remain up here. You shouldn't only connect to it through faith and inspiration, but for it to be internalized, you have to really understand it. And that's why he wrote a book called the Tanya. The Tanya is not on the Parsha. It's the only work which is like an encyclopedic presentation of what does Chassidus teach about Judaism? What does Chassidus teach about life? It's not a book that's based on the Parsha, on insight on the Parsha. It's a book that comes to examine from the beginning what is life from the Baal Shem Tov's perspective. What does Pnimiyus HaTorah, what does Kabbalah and Chassidus teach about Torah, about mitzvahs, about the Jewish people, about God, about the world, about history, about the soul, about the purpose of life, about the struggles of life. In other words, he came to present a shitta. His colleagues didn't do that. His colleagues would inspire the olam. He wrote books to explain the shitta, and all of his discourses are long. A lot of them are very long and deep. Anybody here who tasted the works of Torah Likutei Torah, Tanya, Shar Yichud V'Emunah, the Maimorim of the Alter Rebbe, tremendous amount of toil and effort needed. Simply to learn it, to understand it. It's not microwave oven inspiration. We like microwave oven inspiration. The microwave oven, you want it hot and you want it fast. How long did it take your grandmother to bake a potato? You remember? You remember? No? Wie lange hat genommen dein Baba machen eine Kartoffel? Still baking, no? Still baking. Somebody once said in our home, my mother always served leftovers. We're still looking for the original meal. We never found that. It's always leftovers. A good potato took an hour. If you wanted it crispy, an hour and 20 minutes. Today, if it takes more than 3 minutes, you're going to sue the company. You know the New York prayer for patience, right? God, give me patience and give it to me now. So in the title page of the Tanya, the Sharblat of the Tanya, the author writes, Miyusad al mashakasu ki karav elecha adav moed befichol v'avchal asoisai levayir hetiv eich hu karav moed b'derech arucha uktsara be'ezer Hashem Yisbarach. I'm going to explain how God, Yiddishkeit, is karav moed, is close, very close to you. B'derech arucha uktsara. In a long path, there's a long path, a short path. It's a very interesting title. B'derech arucha uktsara. You know what he means? He's referring to a Gemara in Eruvin. The Gemara says in Masechta Eruvin, a lovely story. I think it was Reb Chananya who said, "May olam lo nitzchani adam." Reb Chananya was brilliant. He says, "Nobody ever won me. Nobody was ever victorious over me, besides a child." Child. What happened? I was traveling on the road. I wanted to get to Yerushalayim, and there was a fork, and I didn't know that you go right or you go left, right? So what do you do in Israel if you're lost? You roll down the window and you say, "What's the way?" You say, "Yasha, yasha, yara, yamina, smala." So he asks him, "Yamin, right or left?" So the child says, "If you go this way, it's derech tzara v'arucha. This path is short and long. If you go this path, it's arucha tzara. It's long and short. So which one would you take? Which one sounds better? The short one. So he goes in the short. He said it's short and long, so he goes in the short one. So it's very short. He mamish arrives to the city, but he sees you can't get in. It's obstructed by gardens and orchards. Impossible to get in. So he comes back to the fork. He tells the child, "Was sagst du mir a Chainik? Was dreist du mir a cup? Why are you telling me this is the short path? I can't get in." He says, "I also told you it's the long path. I told you it's the short, long path." So he goes on the other path. It's very long. It's long and winding and tedious. But when you get there, you get there. When you get there, you get there. So he writes on the title page of the Tanya, B'derech arucha uktsara. I'm not going to give you a short path. I'm going to give you a long path. But it will turn out to be short. Because there's the inspiration that comes from a fast niggin, good joke, tell me about it, a nice story, and it's wonderful, it's beautiful. But it's like when you light straw, or you light twigs, the fire catches on fast. There's one problem. Goes out equally fast. And then there's getting the log on fire. But derech harucha, it's a long path. Medav haraven, you have to learn, and think, and internalize, and contemplate, and meditate. But it's ktsara. Because when you're there because it permeates, it has the capacity to permeate, to penetrate, to become part of who you really are as a person. Not just part of the spiritual, transcendental heaven within you, but also the earthly part of you, the human part of you, the animal that's in you, or in the terminology of the Tanya, not just your nefesh halakis, but also affect your nefesh habahamis, not only your godly soul, but also your animal soul. So when Reb Shmuel Munkus, you remember I'm in a little story. Reb Shmuel Munkus, I guess, it's maybe a little long, but we're going to get there. I don't digress, I extrapolate. Be'ezer Hashem Yisbarach. You know the difference? So Shmuel Munkus comes to the Alter Rebbe. He says, so the Rebbe said, he wasn't saying, I'm looking for a place to stay. Okay, thank you. We don't need Reb Shmuel Munkus for that. You don't need Alter Rebbe for that. He said, I'm looking for a place where my soul can rest. I'm looking for a place where I can find my neshama. I could find God. That's what I'm looking for. So the Alter Rebbe says, in middle of the night, it's very dark, life is dark. He says, I thought by you there's no night. There's no darkness here. The Alter Rebbe then says, I'm not sure this is your place. I'm not sure this is your place. Why don't you go to another house? There's many great people out there. He says, but this is not a Jewish home. I want a home where I can get all of Yiddishkeit. I want Yiddishkeit in the deepest way, the most real way. I'm sick of superficiality. I'm sick of falsehood. I'm sick of vanity. I'm sick of a Judaism that's, the Alter Rebbe has an expression in the Torah. The Gemara often uses an expression, it's already in Pirkei Avos, gas haruach. You know what a gas haruach is? An arrogant person, gasus haruach. So Baal HaTanya says, what's gasus haruach? Listen to this. The ruchnius is gas. The spirituality is thick, it's brute. Sometimes you can have ruchnius, but it's gas, it's coarse. It's spiritual, but it's coarse. You can talk about God, but it's coarse. You can talk about davening, and it's coarse. You can talk about hakaras hatoiv, midas toivus, yiras shamayim. It's coarse. What's missing is the subtlety, the refinement, the transcendence, the ability to lose yourself in truth, not only find yourself, to go beyond your ego, to be able to experience real depth. So he says, I want a home where Yiddishkeit permeates it fully, truthfully, pnimiistic, in a very internal way. So Alter Rebbe says, there's many homes. He says, no, I want this home. I want to be by you. So the Alter Rebbe says, I'm going to tell my guy to chase you out. What did he mean? Alter Rebbe was going to go call somebody to expel a Jew from his home. You wouldn't do it in the middle of the night. He would do it. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, what Alter Rebbe was saying was something very, very heavy. He was saying, let me tell you how things work around here. People come, they're all inspired, but then suddenly the goy inside, it's not the goy outside, the kel zor asher bechir b'cha, the alien within you, the addict within you, the Yetzer Hara within you, will expel you from here. You're here today, you're gone tomorrow. How many of us were on fire, and then the twigs burn out, the kerosene is done, and boom, you're back in the pits. This is the human story. Inconsistency, fluctuations. Me'igri Rama, the Gemara has an expression in Chagiga Dafei, Me'igri Rama, Lebira Mikta. From the top mount, from the peak of the Mount Everest into the deepest abyss. The guy will expel you from here. It's not going to work. You're looking for a place where there's no night. He just has said, by you there's no night. You don't want darkness. It's going to come. So Reb Shmuel Munkus tells the Alter Rebbe, he says, Rebbe, mein guy is a sach starke wie Ayuk. Don't think that I don't know about my demons, my skeletons, my ghosts, my darkness. My coming to you is not based on denial, naivete, and superficial inspiration. I know I have a relationship with my guy. We know each other for a long time. It's very strong. When the Alter Rebbe heard that, he said, now you could come in. Because the real Yesod of Avodas Hashem and Chassidus is not repression, but awareness and sublimation. It's not coming ever from denying who you are, but rather finding God within the place that you are in. You understand? It's not about denying who you are, your struggles, your situations. It's about finding the light in the middle of the night. It's not about getting rid of the night. Not everybody can get rid of the night. That's what the Tanya says. There are tzaddikim who can. But everybody could light a candle in the middle of the night. Everybody could light a candle. It's a beautiful word story, a marshal from the Heilige Tzanzerov of the Divrei Chaim. Tzanzerov says there was once a Jew who was lost. V'hinei soya. There was a Jew who was lost, and he was searching for the way out of the wilderness for 3 days and 3 nights. He couldn't find the way out. But on the 4th day, he goes into ecstasy because he sees another person. And the other person is holding a lantern and is walking. So he runs over to the person. Matavakesh, what do you want? And he says, get me out of this jungle. I've been lost for 3 days. The man laughs, smiles, says, you've been lost for 3 days. I've been lost for 3 months. I can't tell you how to get out of here. I don't know the way out. So he says, can you help me? He says, I can help you one way. I can tell you which way won't get you out of here. I tried so many paths. I can tell you where not to go. I can't tell you where to go. I'm an expert on where not to go. You know, the Ger Rebbe once says in Pirkei Avos, ben chamishim la'etza. When you're 50, you start giving advice. He says, what happens when you're 50 that you become a balaitza? Anybody here knows? No one is a ben chamishim? Did you start giving eitzes when you became 50? What happens when you're 50 that you start giving eitzes? So the Ger Rebbe said, when you're 50, you made enough mistakes to be able to tell people what not to do. At the age of 40, you're still experimenting. At the age of 50, you realize, you made so many mistakes in life, you could start telling people what not to do. So this guy, the Tzanzerov says, this guy says, I can't tell you how to get out of the jungle. I can tell you where not to go. So he turns to him and he says, so what do we do? He says, let's hold hands and search for a new way together. So he looks at him and he says, so why you have a lantern? What does the lantern help you? You don't even know where to go. So he says, I don't know where to go. That's true. But I'm lighting a lantern because I hope by lighting the lantern, somebody else will find me and take me out of here. So the yisoid that the Alter Rebbe wanted to hear from Reb Shmuel Munkus is, if you're in denial, if you're not aware of who you really are, so first of all, your avodas Hashem, your service of God won't be authentic. Because it's coming from denial, it's coming from not understanding your real condition, your real situation. And it's doomed to failure, because when you do discover who you are, either you'll become disillusioned and you're going to run away, or you're going to become a fake. And both options are very, very poor options to live by. So you have to really be aware of the goy very well. And that awareness allows you to become an Oved Hashem based on who you really, really are. It's what Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu when he saw that the bush is burning, but it's not being consumed. Right? So Moshe says, Madua lo yiver hasna? Why doesn't it get consumed? So what does Hashem say? Take your shoes off your feet. Because you're standing on holy soil. What's the conversation? So there's a very deep conversation. The Baal Shem Tov's grandson, the Degel Machin Ephraim, says this. You get on fire, but hasne boya be'esh, vasne nenuukal. But the fire never penetrates you. There's always a part of you that remains cold, frozen, numb, dead, apathetic. You need more adjectives over there? You're good. You're never really on fire. There's always a part of you that remains kalt, verfreuden, teut. So Moshe says, what am I doing wrong? Why can't my fire burn me up in a positive way? Doesn't this prove that my service of God is fake, phony, fraud, false? V'haraya, yesterday I had a geschmacke davening, and then today my addiction is haunting me, or my taivas are overwhelming me. I can't control not my eyes, not my ears, not my mouth, not my computer. I can't control anything. I'm completely in the opposite place. So which one is the lie and which one is the truth? Who's the liar and who's the real one? The thorns never disappear. As much as there's a fire burning, it never really penetrates the whole bush. I never will be consumed in Hashem Elokecha Eish Eichlehu, in God's fire. So what do? Either you give up on yourself. That's our times. You give up on yourself. Either you give up on yourself in the open, so everybody has to know it on Facebook, or you give up on yourself in private. You still wear the Shwein of Gadol, you still wear the 8 garments of the Kohen Gadol, or the Dalad Gadol. If you're not a Kohen Gadol, you're a Kohen Hedyot. You go with the routine, with the system, so your kids can get all the shidduchim they need and get into the yeshivas they need. But inside, there's nobody home. There's nobody home. There's mamish nobody home. It's like you're so there's such disillusionment, such detachment, such apathy. I told you once, they asked a Jew, what's the difference between ignorance and apathy? So he said, I don't know and I don't care. So those are the two options. The sneh is not burning, so either I become disillusioned, or the other option is, I'll fake it. And then there's mamish nobody who to talk to. Because at least the person who's disillusioned, there's frustration. There's at least a spear, there's somebody to talk to. But a faker, there's nobody to talk to, because you're talking to a mask. You're talking to a mask. So in the world of Chassidus, in the world of Chabad Chassidus, the worst insult that they could give somebody is, you know what? A chitzen. A chitzen means somebody who's not for real. In other words, when you talk to them, you're not talking to a real person. You're talking to somebody who's just repeating, what you're supposed to say. Fits into the clique. Because there's no tikkun for that. Because I could never get to you. There's no you. You created a mask, and that's what you talk from, 24/7. Who are you? At least you're having issues, but there's a you having issues. But if you're Mr. Perfect, you're like the real Jew, and it's just wonderful, and you repress everything else, like, I'm not talking to a real person, so it's very painful. It's very painful. That's what a chitzen is. Somebody just lives on the outside. So Moshe says, Madua le'ivra asna, what's going to be? So Hashem says, take off your shoes. Ki hamakoim asher ata oimed alav admos kodesh. The place that you're standing on is admos kodesh. Your whole paradigm has to change. That's why he called the Sefer Shel Beinanim, not Sefer Shel Tzaddik. Your perspective on Avodas Hashem is, what does it mean to have a real relationship with God? That you're struggle-free, you're stress-free, you're addiction-free. You're a liberated angel in heaven. That's what it means you have a relationship with God. But that's not true. That itself is a misguided perspective. There are souls that were created with the capability of being real tzaddikim. Tzaddikim means they don't have a Yetzer Hara anymore, the real tzaddik. When we say he's a tzaddik, what does it really mean? It means he won't backstab you. But a real tzaddik is somebody who doesn't have a Yetzer Hara, so that's unique. The ordinary person could be a Beinani. The Tanya says, what's a Beinani? A Beinani is the possible man. The possible man is not the person who's struggle-free, who doesn't have ups and downs, who doesn't fluctuate. The Beinoni is somebody who has a dichotomy, an inherent split that will not necessarily go away. Yes, it may change, you refine your character, you sublimate your character, but there's always darkness that you have to transform. But what it means to have a relationship with God is not that you don't have darkness, not that you don't have night, it's that you light a candle in your night. It's that you bring Hashem into your darkness. It's that you bring Hashem into your addiction. It's that you bring Hashem into your struggle, into your life, into your real truth. Don't fake it and don't get disillusioned. The place where you stand, not geographically, existentially, the place where you are standing now can become holy if you can see it that way. Very good. The place where you're standing right now. Dveikus happens now. Life happens now. Intimacy happens now. Truth happens now. It doesn't happen in a year, in a month, in a week. You know the people who say, "Well, I'm going to start living when I lose 40 pounds." At 96, he's still not losing 40 pounds. Life happens now. Relationships happen now. Kedusha happens now. The place where you're standing right now. But what do you mean the place? The place where I'm standing is a mess. Okay. Now you know your guy. It's strong. It's stronger than the Alter Rebbe's guy. Okay, now we can talk. Let's talk. Let's talk. Shmuel Munkus becomes a chassid. That's how he becomes a chassid. So the Rebbeinu Shalom tells Moshe Rabbeinu, the burning bush is not supposed to consume it completely. There will always be a place that won't be consumed. And yet, your life today in this world can become a true symphony, resonating with the music of a relationship with God by finding the purpose, the meaning, the depth in where you stand today, in where you are right now. God's presence everywhere means here, this moment, this place, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, where you are today. Admas Kodesh. gewaltige Meise. To appreciate the story, let me remind you of an argument in Gemara. Gemara in Masechta Shabbos, Daf Chav Beis, Tractate Shabbos, page 22, quotes an argument between Rav and Shmuel about Chanukah. What's the argument? If madlikin miner leneir, we use a shamash to light the candles. But what happens if you don't have a shamash? You just have the menorah itself with the candles of Chanukah themselves. Can you take one candle and light another candle with it? Madlikin miner leneir. Can you take a Chanukah candle and use one candle, let's say the first one to light the second one, or the second one to light the first one? So Rav says you're not allowed to. Shmuel says you're allowed to. Why does Rav say you're not allowed to? So the Gemara says the second reason, the main reason, Mishum akhushe mitzvah. You're weakening, you're diminishing the first mitzvah. You take the candle and you want to light the second one. A little oil will pour out. A little wax will fall away. You're diminishing the first mitzvah. You take a shamash, you take a match, I don't care. But you take the first candle, you're weakening the first mitzvah. That's what Rav holds. Shmuel says no. Since you're using the candle to light another candle, so Shmuel disagrees with Rav. He says you're allowed to do it. Now here is the interesting thing. Usually, when there's an argument between Rav and Shmuel, who's the halacha like? So we all know halacha kerav be'isura v'chishmul bedineh. Civil issues, monetary issues, the halacha is like Shmuel. But dineh, issues of religious law, like kashrus and these things, the halacha is like Rav. Amar Abaye, so the Gemara says Abaye said, usually the halacha is always like Rav. Besides three things, the halacha is like Shmuel, and one of them is this: madlikim and ne'elinei. You could light from one candle to another candle. What's the nature of the argument behind? What's the nature of the argument on a deeper level? Rav says you're taking the candle, you're using it to light another candle. You're losing part of the momentum and the strength and the quantity and the quality of the first candle. What's Shmuel's argument? Shmuel says, in that process, you're creating a new candle. So ultimately you're not losing, you're gaining. What does this mean in life? It's not just an argument about lighting candles, physical candles on Chanukah. It's also an argument which still exists in the Jewish world. Maybe not as strong as it did in the past, but it still exists in the Jewish world. And that is, should one candle, should one Neir Hashem Nishmas Adam, the Pasuk says in Mishlei, that the soul of a person is the candle of Hashem. Should one candle get involved in lighting another candle? Or the candle should just retain its own light and remain in its own space and not be encumbered and bothered by the function and the task of lighting another candle? One argument says, akhushe mitzvah. Practically, you're a religious Jew. You're a Jew who lives in Muncie or wherever you live. You're steeped in Williamsburg and Lakewood. You're steeped in Yiddishkeit. You're steeped in Torah. You're steeped in mitzvahs. Should you now go to another person, comes from a different background, different lifestyle, their candle is not burning, their Jewish candle is not burning, and spend time and resources, invite them to your home or go to their place and light them? Akhushe mitzvah. It's going to weaken your candle. Time, resources, energy, intensity. That's what's going to happen. Don't do it. But the halacha is like Shmuel. That what? It's the other way around. When you take time and energy to light another candle, so there's more Jewish light in the world. And if there's more Jewish light in the world, then your light is going to become only stronger. And what is more, by lighting up somebody else, you yourself get illuminated in a way that you could never be illuminated if you don't light up somebody else. When you bring warmth and hope and love and depth and meaning and Torah to somebody else, so your own Torah, your own Yiddishkeit is experienced on a new level. It's challenged much deeper. It's challenged in a new way. It's crystallized in a new way. It forces you to internalize it in a much more powerful way. When you have this comfort zone of your own cocoon, then it could often be superficial. So Shmuel says, not only will it not weaken your flame, it will enhance your flame. It will enhance your light. And till today, there's two views, there's two perspectives. But Abaya says, usually we say halacha kerav. Here we say halacha kishmuel. You gotta light candles. You have to light other candles. So here's this Maisa. There's a city, we went on a trip last year in Ukraine, we passed that city. There's a city called Zhytomyr. Zhytomyr is a city in the Ukraine. In Zhytomyr lived a great Jew, Reb Wolf of Zhytomyr. He was a student of the Maggid. He wrote a sefer called Ohr HaMeir. Ohr HaMeir, the light that shines. It's a beautiful, beautiful Hasidic work. Reb Wolf of Zhytomyr. I think he was by the Baal Shem Tov also, actually. And Reb Wolf of Zhytomyr lived in Zhytomyr. That was his city. One day, Reb Baruchel of Mezhebush, who was a grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, I mentioned before, he was the Baal Shem Tov's daughter's son, Reb Baruch of Mezhebush. He's buried close to the Baal Shem Tov. He came on a visit to Zhytomyr. He was visiting Zhytomyr. Mezhebush is also in the Ukraine. He's walking in the street and he sees a Jew across the street. He goes over to this Jew and he says, I would like to marry into your family. I have a son who needs a shidduch. I mean, a son who's marriageable age, wants to get married. Do you have? He says, I have a daughter. She says, Gewaldik. I think this is going to work. The Jew couldn't believe this. A simple Jew, Reb Baruchel of Mezhebush, was one of the tzaddikim of the generation. No shatche, no negotiations, no matchmakers, no resumes, no emails, no references. Right? It's a shidduch. He shakes his hand. He said, let's go finalize it. His gabbai, his assistant, whispers to the rabbi, it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. We got to do some research. He says, it's a good idea. So people are gathering, mazel tov them out. What happened? The Rebbe Baruchel made a shidduch with this Jew. Somebody tells the Rebbe Baruchel, you know who this guy is? He's the Ganev of Zhytomyr. He is the thief of Zhytomyr. You know, every city has a shtat Ganev, right? Some cities have more than one. But every city, every self-respecting Jewish shtetl has a shtat Ganev. Listen, everybody needs parnasa. So different people make parnasa different ways. So he's the shtat Ganev of Zhytomyr. He's the thief of Zhytomyr. Everybody knows. The Baruchel of Mezhebush, the Baal Shem Tov's grandson, has no better shidduch for his son than this man's daughter. It's a pasnish. It's inappropriate. It's unfair to this boy. And they tell Reb Baruchel, we'll tell you a story about this fellow. They had a law in Zhytomyr that if somebody was caught stealing, so in order to teach him a lesson, they would put him on a wagon and lead him across the whole city. And kids and everybody would throw things on him. The Ganev, they would embarrass the thief. They would lead him through the city and embarrass him. So you should learn his lesson. And you know who had this punishment in Zhytomyr? This Jew. He was caught stealing. They put him on a wagon. They led him throughout. They brought him. They traveled with him throughout the whole Zhytomyr, publicly denigrating him. Why would you want to make a match with him? Why would you want to go into a shidduch with him? So Reb Baruchel of Mezhebush says, I don't know what stories you're telling me. I know that I see a light on his face. I see an oir, I see a lichtigkeit on his face. The Gabbai says, Rebbe, maybe it's your light being reflected on him. Not a good idea. The shidduch is done. I'll talk to my son, you talk to your daughter, we're doing it. Before he leaves the city, he goes to visit the widow of Reb Wolf of Zhitomir. The Ohr HaMeir passed away some time before, and his widow was living in Zhitomir. So Reb Baruch went to her home to visit the wife of the holy Reb Ze'ev Wolf of Zhitomir. So he walks into the house, and she says, Mazel Tov, Azah Sheine Shidduch. I heard about the shidduch that you made, the engagement. What a beautiful, beautiful partnership. So the Baruch tells her, he says, the crowd is criticizing me. Why do you say it's such a beautiful shidduch? So she says to him, I'll tell you a story that happened a few years ago. This Jew, your mechutin, the father of the daughter, was accused of theft. And they put him on a wagon, and the policeman was riding with him across Zhitomir, and everybody was screaming, thief, thief, thief. All the Gentiles, thief, thief, some Jews. My husband was sitting by the window, Reb Wolf of Zhitomir, and he was watching. And he saw this Jew come by in the wagon in front of our house. And my husband turned to me and said, Es nish de ganav. He's not the thief. I'm like, I tell Reb Wolf, you're a nice guy, and you like saying that everyone is a tzaddik. The guy's a ganav, the guy's a thief. He says, Kenzen, he's not the thief. This man did not steal a dime. He didn't steal a kopke, didn't steal a ruble, a penny, a dollar from anybody. He says, what's going on? He says, I'll tell you what happened. Another Jew stole. The other Jew was caught. And the other Jew was talking to this man. And he told him how broken he is from the shame that he's going to experience. And he doesn't think he'll survive it ever. He will be shattered. He will be so denigrated, he won't be able to show his face, not to his wife, not to his kids, not to a friend, not to the community. He's going to want to kill himself. So this Jew felt bad for him. He says, I'll take it on myself. I'll say that I did it. I can deal with denigration. It's fine. I'm good. He took it upon himself. I see on his face his light. He didn't steal. He sacrificed himself for somebody else. And my husband turns to me. She tells Reb Baruch and says, and proof is that in a few years a great tzaddik will come and is going to ask this Jew to give him his daughter to marry his son. He's going to want to marry into his family. And then you'll see that I was right. So she says to him, when I heard through the grapevine that you made this shidduch, I'm telling you, it's a good shidduch. It's a good shidduch. I heard it from my husband many years ago. So the name of his work, the name of his book is Ohr HaMeir, the light that glows, the light that shines. What's Ohr HaMeir? By Chanukah, it's different than everything else. We say in Aneres Halolu, Ein lanu rishus lishtamish behen, elo liroisan bulvat. Our job is to look at it. In fact, Chanukah is the only mitzvah that there's a special bracha made, not only for the person who lights the Chanukah candle, for the person who sees the Chanukah candle. Why are you making a bracha for seeing a mitzvah? Because Chanukah, one of the great ideas of Chanukah is to see. What do you want to see? What do you want to see? You could look at somebody and see him as the Ganav. He's the thief of the city. But if you have the Ohr HaMeir, if you have access to the light, to the Ohr of Chanukah, so you could see a little deeper. And suddenly the picture changes completely. You're looking at the same person. One person sees the thief of the city, and another person sees a tremendous light coming from that person. One person only sees external light, which is often dark. And one person sees internal light, which is not visible to many. I look only at the superficial light, and it may really be darkness, because it's masquerading, it's disguising the depth. The Ohr HaMeir is the ability to be able to see the inner Ohr, to be able to see the inner light. That's what the Baal Shem Tov came to teach. That in every situation, you should be able to see the Ohr HaMeir. Not that there's no night, but to be able to create a candle in the night. First of all, in yourself. Second of all, in others. And third of all, in the world. And then you could be madlik ner mener. Then you could light other candles. When you can appreciate the light in other people, then you can light up other candles. One of our greatest setbacks is that we often fail to appreciate how much light there is beneath the surface. We look at the clouds and they're very dark. And we forget that above the clouds, the sun is always shining. It's just that the clouds don't allow us that perspective. In ourselves, we sometimes don't see our light. In others, we don't see our light. We get so overwhelmed by the mask. What Chanukah is to be able to see the Ohr HaGanuz, the inner light in yourself, the inner candle. And then when you could see that in yourself, you could see it in other people. When you could see it in other people, you could see it in your children, you could see it in the world, you could see it with colleagues. It's a different Ohr. It's not an Ohr because you're naive and stupid and delusional. You see the external, but like Reb Wolf of Zhetamir, you could see mamish the Ohr HaMeir, the inner light. And a classic illustration of this is an interpretation of another one of the great Hasidic giants of the early generations, Reb Avraham of Avruch, who wrote a sefer called Bas Ayin. And in Parshas Vayeshev, the Bas Ayin says an incredible insight. It's like a mamash, a classic. This is what he says. Yehuda leaves his family. He marries a woman. They have 3 sons. 2 of them die. Ohr dies. So he has Ohr's wife do yibum, do a levirate marriage with the second boy, Oinon. Oinon dies. She's supposed to do yibum with the 3rd son, Shelah, right? But he's afraid. He thinks it's her fault. She's killing his children. He doesn't want her to marry the 3rd boy. On the other hand, she's bound in this yibum, in this levirate marriage, so she's stuck. She's not free just to go her own way, but he's not marrying her off to Shelah. So what does she do? So she does something incredible. The Ramban says that before Matan Torah, before the Torah was given, yibum was not only with a brother-in-law, it was with the closest of kin. In other words, any family member. After Matan Torah, yibum is only a brother-in-law. If a husband dies childless, so there's an obligation for his wife, for the widow, to marry one of his brothers, unless if she or he doesn't want. There's what we call chalitza, which is usually done today in most Ashkenazi communities, already for the last 1,500 years. But before Matan Torah, yibum could be with your father-in-law. So Tamar technically could marry Yehuda too. So what does Tamar do? In desperation, she disguises herself. Thank you. She disguises herself, and she summons Yehuda into a relationship. She wants money. So Yehuda gives her collateral. What's the collateral? You remember? Chosemes Psilim, mata. His seal, psilim, his girdle, his gartel, according to one interpretation. Mata, his stick. So she now has these items. She becomes pregnant. Yehuda finds out that his daughter-in-law, who's bound to Shelah in Yibum, is pregnant. He knows it's not from Shelah. That means she betrayed the relationship. She's sentenced to be burnt. On the way to the stake, what does she do? She sends the 3 items to Yehuda with one message. Hakerna. Lemi ha-chosemes va-psilim va-mata ha'ela. Leish asher eile lo yonoichi har. Recognize who owns these 3 items. He is the man from whom I'm pregnant. Vayakir Yehuda. Yehuda sees. Vayomer, and he says, Tzotka. She's right. Mimeni. I'm the culprit. This is me. Ki al kein lo nesati l'sheila bni. Because I didn't give her to Sheila, my son. I put her in a bind, in an impossible bind. He actually marveled at the ingenious and creativity of his daughter-in-law. She gives birth to twins, we all know, Peretz and Zorach. Peretz becomes the Zayda of Boyaz, of Ovid, of Yishai, of David HaMelech, Shlomo Mashiach. Says the Pasuk, after the relationship with Yehuda, Vayihikim Shloish Chadoshim, around 3 months passed, Vayugad Yehuda Lema, they came to Yehuda and they said, Hine Zonsa Tama Kalasecha V'gamini Hara Liznunim. Tama, your daughter-in-law, entered into a promiscuous relationship and she's pregnant. And Yehuda says, Eitziyu v'sisarif, let her be burnt. And that's when she sends these 3 items and asks him to recognize them. Zok dehelike basai, and listen to this. It says in Kabbalah, in the writings of the Arizal, that the end of Yomei Hadin, the end of the days of judgment, are when? Chanukah. You know, we always push off the verdict. We're good at that, right? So you have Rosh Hashanah, okay. Seisimei Tshuva, Yom Kippur, we all know Hoshana Rabbah, right? Sukkot, Hoshana Rabbah. But then it goes till Chanukah. The 8 days of Chanukah parallel the 8 days of Sukkot. So the ultimate din, the ultimate verdict is till Chanukah. Till Chanukah is still not clear. That's what the Arizal writes. Yehuda, the Gemara says in Masechta Soita, many of you are learning Soita now, Daf Yomi. Yehuda is Nikra Shmoish LaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Hashem's name. Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, all in the same word, Yehuda. Tamar, the Gemara says in Masechta Sukkah, why we take a lulav, why we take a frand from a palm tree. Ma Tamar ein lo yela leiv echad af Yisrael eshlem leiv echad. The lulav has one heart, the Jew has one heart. Tzaddik ha-tamar yifrach. The tzaddik is compared to the tamar, to the date, to the palm tree. We say in the Haishainus on Sukkot, you remember? Damsa, oymani chayma, goyla v'soyra damsa l'samar. Damsa l'tamar. She's compared to a tamar. One heart. Zakh the Basai in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Every Jew is bisoyrus. Every Jew screams Hashem Hu Elokim 7 times. Shema Yisrael once, Baruch Shem 3 times. Rosh Hashanah, every Jew, even Jews that don't show up in shul all year, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Jews come. It's a special time. Even a Kalsha B'Kalim, a light-headed person, the time of Ne'ilah, special time of tshuva, v'soirus, of closeness. Balatanya writes that Tishrei is kiruv hamoyer el hanitzutz, which means every soul is a little spark of Hashem, but usually the spark is far away from the source. And Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is kiruv hamoyer el hanitzutz. The bonfire, the luminary comes close to the spark. What happens when you bring the big flame close to the spark? The spark is absorbed in the larger flame. The Gemara says in Yavamis, Rosh Hashanah dirshu Hashem be'imotzai, kreu b'yosekarav emas. When is he close? Eilu asara yom shemir Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. The 10 days between Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Vayihi kimishloish chadashim. Not 3 months, almost 3 months. What's almost 3 months? From Rosh Hashanah, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, comes Yud-Tes Kislev. Or, in the words of the Basayan, comes Chanukah. Kimish Loish Chadasha. Almost 3 months, around 3 months. Could be a little more if you count from Yom Kippur. Could be a little less if you count from Rosh Hashanah. I mean, if you count from Yom Kippur, if you count from Rosh Hashanah, it's less than 3 months, but it's almost Yom Kippur, even less. It's Kimish Loish Chadasha. Yugadli Yehuda Leimoy. The final judgment of Chanukah, so the Satan comes to Yehuda, to the Rebbe Shalom, and he says, Dein Heilige Tamar, Dein Sheine Tamar, Zansa Tamar Kalasecha. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, your Tamar, Sukkot had one heart. Damsa L'Samar, one heart. But you know what? Tishrei bites the dust, and then comes a Cheshvan, and you're back in the real world. Life is stressful, life is overwhelming, and life is tiring. So Zansa Tamar Kalasecha, Tamar betrayed the relationship. But you know what? There's betrayal and there's betrayal. Wie sagt die Gemara in Soita, Daf Daled, Amar Yishlokish, Ein Adam Oiver Aveir Elam Kei Nichnas Bei Ruach Shtus. People have moments of insanity. Big deal. Who's not insane once in a while? But there's insanity, and there's turning insanity into a life philosophy. That's a different thing. Everybody is insane. If you're not insane, you're not really normal, right? To be normal, you have to be a bissel meshuga. People that are mamish normal are esht meshuga. You have to be predictably unpredictable. But you know what? There's meshuga and meshuga. You know the Maisa? Gewaldike Maisa. The Rebbe Maharash was the fourth Chabad Rebbe, the son of the Tzemach Tzedek, the youngest son of the Tzemach Tzedek. He lived in the city of Lubavitch in Belarus. When the Baal Tanya passed away, the Mittler Rebbe, his son, settled in Lubavitch. That's why the Alter Rebbe wasn't the first Lubavitch Rebbe. There was no Lubavitch then. It was Chabad. Lubavitch started by the Mittler Rebbe. The name, a city, which means Luba, love, in Russian, love. Chabad is intellect and Lubavitch is emotion, love. So the Mittler Rebbe settles in Lubavitch. It's son-in-law of the Tzemach Tzedek. After Tzemach Tzedek is the Maharash, Reb Shmuel, the Rebbe Reb Shmuel. He passed away Yud Gimel Tishrei Tov Reish Mem Gimel, 1882. He was a young man. So he lived Bahar Chava, like the Ruzhane. He lived very broad life, aristocratic. He used to go on a daily stroll. He had a coach. The coachman would take him. He would go to the forest. He would take a walk there. Usually almost on a daily basis. He was also very ill. He did it for health reasons, other reasons. He would meditate in the forest. Every Jewish city, I said before, every self-respecting Jewish city had a Stadt Ganev. There's a city thief. But every self-respecting Jewish city also has a Stadt Meshugana. You know, the nut of the city. Again, some cities are Mahadir. They have more than one. And some cities are Mahadir min Mahadrin. Right? Like Mamish. But a self-respecting Jewish city, the Stadt Meshugana. But in the Shtetl, it was a very serious job. The Jews were broken and bored and lonely and poor. And the Stadt Meshugana, he was the Machid, the entertainer. I don't want to say the Batchen, but he was the entertainer. Lubavitch, the city of Lubavitch, also had a Stadt Meshugana. He was known, a real nut job, Kemoshe Kosov. A real, I don't know, how do you say Meshugana in English? An imbecile, I don't know, whatever. How does Art School translate Cheresh Shoit of a cotton? How do they translate Shoit? I don't know how you translate. Huh? A Meshugana, I doubt they translate it that way. It's probably imbecile. So once the Rebbe Maharash is going in the coach, the Mishtat Meshugana jumps into the wagon. He jumps into the wagon and he sits down near the Rebbe. And the Chassidim were very upset. So they wanted to schlep him down, but he was already there. And he's already talking to the Rebbe, to the Lubavitch Rebbe, the Maharash. And they have a conversation. He finishes and he jumps off the wagon. Everybody was very curious. They run over to him. So first they want to give him some malchus, but he says, relax, Chavra. They say, what happened? Was chutzpah? You go in, it's the Rebbe's private time. He says, listen, I tried to get a yechidus with the Rebbe. The Gabbai doesn't let me. He says, I'm a Meshugana. So he wouldn't let me go see the Rebbe. So what am I supposed to do? If they don't let you through the door, you go through the window. I asked the Gabbai, for months, I asked the Rebbe's secretary to let me in. He refuses. He says, I'm a crazy person, I can't go in. So I'm not allowed to ask a Rebbe a question? So what am I supposed to do? I jumped in the wagon. They say, what did you have to ask the Rebbe? He said, I had a very serious question in life. So what was your question? So this is what he said. Nearby, there's the city of Minsk. Minsk, Choshev city. Starke Litvische city. And the Stott Meshugana came from Minsk to Lubavitch. And he said, come to Minsk. Come to Minsk. Because Minsk has lots of people. More people. Lubavitch is a little town still. A very little town. Very small village. And come to Minsk. And we'll be able to keep each other company because the Olam doesn't understand me. You understand me. We understand each other. Let's be together. And you know what? There's more people here. We'll both make more money. It's like not an issue. You're not going to lose your money. It's a serious question. Do I leave my position in Lubavitch and go to Minsk? Or do I stay in Lubavitch? So who do I ask? I went to the Rebbe. I said, what should I do? So the Rebbe said, over here, you're the king. If you're going to be there, he's the king. It's not fair. You need your own malucha. You need your own empire. I don't think you should move. Staka more people there, maybe a little better parnasa, but here you're the king. You're the balabas. You got to work for yourself. You can't work for other people. Good. The Rebbe said, I jumped off the wagon. So they say, no, you're going to listen to the Rebbe? So the guy had a good argument, doesn't want to be lonely, doesn't want to... So of course I'm going to listen to the Rebbe. I said, why are you going to listen to the Rebbe? Why are you going to listen to the Rebbe? So Chassidim used to repeat the story. I heard it from Reb Mendel Futterfass. They used to say, he looked at them and he said, Meshuga, aber Seichel darf man haben. Meshuga, aber Seichel darf man haben. Crazy I am, but you need Seichel. So you understand? So you have insanity. Every person is insane. Aber Seichel darf man haben. Hine sonsa tomek alasecha. Sie hat sich benarished. She betrayed. Fine. So she had a weak moment. Which Jew doesn't have a weak moment? V'gam hine harel is nonim. That's already something else. A person makes a mistake. A person does a sin. Okay, you come back. She didn't do that. She became pregnant from the person. In other words, she wants to build a new life for herself. There's a situation where a person makes an error. B'shoigig, b'mezid, b'yoidim, b'lo-yoidim. We say, al chet shechatonu lefanecha b'yoidim and b'lo-yoidim. What does that mean? So they used to say by Chassidim, me weist und me macht sich nicht wissendig. You know, but you make believe you don't know. I once asked somebody, was machst du? She tells me, ich mach sich nicht wissendig. How you doing? What are you making? I'm making myself, I make believe I don't know. People make mistakes willingly, a weak moment. Well, fine, we all have it. She betrays the relationship. I'm not going to say we all have it, but some people have it. That's why this is true. There's a relationship and there's a relationship. There's insanity and then there is institutionalized insanity. That's already a different mahalach. Will you say goodbye to your wife, your children, your family? Because you decide you need a new life for yourself. In 20 years, 10 years, probably 6 months, you'll regret it. But it happens to people. It happens to people. So the Satan comes to the Yehuda and says, it's not just Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur left and Tamar forgot about you. She's pregnant with others. The Jew is completely enmeshed, entangled, entrenched in alien realities, alien to you. Zog de Basayin, Vayoyme Yehuda, Hoitziua v'Sisarif. It's Chanukah. It's Yom Hadin, Yemei Hadin. If that's the case, I don't need Tamar. The whole purpose of Tamar is to live a life that's ethical, that's moral, that's holy, that's beautiful, that's sacred. But if Tamar is betraying her whole soul, her whole identity, what's the purpose of her in this world? He mutzei, sagde Basayin. The Satan is excited. He got a verdict. Tamar has to be burnt, obliterated, destroyed, gewaldig. He's about to go say l'chaim. He mutzeis. Tamar is being taken out. V'yisholchel chamia leimar. She sends a message to Yehuda, to Hashem. What does she say? Le'ish asher eila lo yanoichi hara. You know who I'm pregnant from? The person who owns these three things. Hakerna. Recognize who owns the seal, the chosim, the psil, the wick, and the mata, the stick. Sakta Basayin. It's the night of Chanukah. Tamar is being taken out. Time of judgment. So she sends a message. Wait a minute. She sends her menorah to Yehuda and she says, Hakerna. L'miachoi semes represents the oil. The Gemara says in Shabbos Chaf Aleph that when the Hashmonaim triumphed over the Syrian Greeks, what happened? Timu kol hashmanim shebeheichel, the Greeks contaminated all the oil. Matzu pach echad shel shemen shahaya. You remember? Chasum b'chisam shel kohen gadol. They found a jug of oil sealed with the seal of the high priest. Haker nolam yachoi semes, the seal. Look at the oil. V'hapsilim. What are the psilim? What's a psil in Hebrew? A psila is a wick. V'hamati says, the Basayin says, is begematria keli, is the menorah. So you have the oil, the wick, and the actual menorah. I think we can add V'hamata is literally the wandering stick of Klal Yisrael, the wandering stick. So Tamar sells Yehuda, Leish asher eila lo yanoichi hara, the one who owns these items. He is the one with whom I'm having a child. What is the Jew telling Hashem? Hakerna. Look at the oil. Look at the wick. Look at the flame. Look at the menorah. Look at the stick. Look at what the Jewish people went through only because they were determined to remain Jews. And you're saying that they're pregnant from somebody else. Look at the blood, the sweat, the tears, the sacrifice, the hatred they endured, and they endure. Why? Only because they're called Jews. And even the most secular Jew in the world, the greatest insult you could give him is, tell him, you're not really Jewish. He's very, what? What's the big deal? What do you care? No, never. I'm a Jew just like you. What do you see in that? You see that the kedushas haneshama, the holiness of the neshama, is as powerful by him as by anybody else. The pinta leyid, the yechida leyachdach. Hakerna, look at this oil. There were so many Hellenists. The Greeks were the most powerful army of the time, and a group of Jews stood up and fought an impossible fight to preserve the oil, to preserve the wick, to preserve the menorah, to preserve the light. With our stick, we went from city to city, from country to country, from continent to continent. And you're listening to the Satan who says that we are pregnant from somebody else. Yes, we make mistakes, of course. Yes, we fall, of course. Yes, we're not perfect, of course. But who are we pregnant from? Who is our allegiance connected to? Who are we bound up with? Who are we one with? Who are we really, really connected to? To the one who owns these three items. Sagt der Helike Basayin, Vayakir Yehuda, comes Chanukah. Hashem recognizes the menorah, the lichtike menorah, Vayomer, and he says, Tzadka, Tamar is right, I'm wrong. Me many. She was always connected to me. The Satan is screaming. She's a troublemaker. She does this, she does that. You know who's guilty in that? I am guilty. Ki al kein loy nisatia l'sheila b'ni. Who's Sheila? Rashi says in Parshas Vayechi, Yaakov tells Yehuda, Lo yasur shevet mi Yehuda mechaykich m'bein raglav ad ki yavoy Shiloi. The ruler won't leave Yehuda, the scepter won't leave his feet till Shiloi comes, says Rashi. Who's Shiloi? You remember the Rashi? Zeh melech ha-Mashiach. Shiloi is Mashiach. Ki al kein lo nisatia l'sheila b'ni. I am guilty. Because for 2,000 years I didn't bring the Geul, I didn't bring Mashiach. What do you expect from a people that for 2,000 years their God has been concealed? With a concealment beyond concealment beyond concealment. A layer upon layer upon layer. With Jews who have been through so much. What do you expect? What do you expect? They don't see you. What did the Helike Baditchev say? He said, Riboyne Shalom, I want to make a deal with you. A kunz you made. Taivas Olam Hazeh, all the gluttonous cravings of this world you put in front of our eyes. Gan Eden and Olam Haba and Gehenim you put into Reishis Chachma, into a book. I want to make a deal. Let's do the other way around. All the Taivas Olam Hazeh put in Reishis Chachma. You want to read about Taivas? Learn Reishis Chachma, you'll figure it out. Olam Hazeh, Olam Haba, Gan Eden, right in front of our eyes. He says, I promise you no Jew would sin. For 2,000 years, Mashiach is in Reishis Chachma. It's in Rambam. It's in Ani Mamin. It's in Chassidus. It's in Kabbalah. It's in Torah. But the concealment is in front of everybody's eyes 24 hours a day. And the questions and the confusions and the tragedies and the blood and the suffering and the pain of so many innocent people. So the Rebbeinu Shalom says, Ki al kein loy nisatia l'sheila b'ni. I'm guilty. I didn't give her to Sheila. I don't let her have Sheila. I don't let her have Mashiach. Was willst du von sie? They are tzaddikim, zog the Basayin, on Chanukah, the verdict comes out. There's nobody like my Tamar. There's nobody as beautiful as my Tamar. So when you look at a person, when you look at yourself, you could look at it with the Ohr HaMeir or not. You could look at it with the glasses. You could look at a person with the glasses, with the lenses of the Baal Shem Tov, of the Talmidei HaBaal Shem Tov, with the glasses of Pnimiyus HaTorah, of Neshama, and then you'll see a whole other picture. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. assume that Rabbi YY and the Ohr Chozer band, we have to give a very big chose this song because of the word of the Ruzhina. The Ruzhina, Heilige Ruzhina once said, "Lahagid ba'boiker chazdecha v'manascha ba'leilas," to speak of your kindness in the morning and your trust at night. So he said, in life, there's morning and there's night. In the morning, when it shines, when the sun is shining, you can talk about chazdecha, your chesed, your grace, your kindness. Ba'leilas, when it's night, then you have to talk about emunascha. You can't talk about chazdecha, you can talk about emunascha. But by day and by night, it's chazdecha and emunascha. As the tradition Yud-Tes Kislev, by the Fabrengens of Yud-Tes Kislev, we sing a song that's usually not sung throughout the year, and that's the famous niggin of the Dalet Babas, the Alter Rebbe's niggin. It's sung in Chabad by weddings, by chuppahs, by the bris, in unique times of the year. One of them is Yud-Tes Kislev, by the Fabrengens of Chag HaGeula. As you know, it's one of the Alter Rebbe was very unique. The word unique is probably inappropriate, but he was a moededike mechadish in halacha. He wrote a Shulchan Aruch, but he was an equally moededike mechadish in Kabbalah. He made a whole new shitta in Kabbalah and Chassidus and Avodas Hashem. I shouldn't say made a new shitta. He was megala. He revealed a new shitta. In addition to that, he was an exceptional writer, a leader, and organizer, but he was also a mystic par excellence, and he was a composer. He was an extraordinary composer. If you hear his songs are... One of his great nigunim is the Nigun Dalet Babas. It has 4 stanzas that he wrote, paralleling the 4 worlds. Atzilus, Bria, Yitzira, Asiya. The world of intimacy, the world of creation, the world of formation, and the world of implementation. It's a very, very profound niggin beyond words, and we sing it after another niggin, which is called Niggin Hachana, a preparation niggin, and then we'll sing the Dalet Bavas. So please join us. At this time, hopefully the ice melted a little bit here, so everybody could wake up from the shlaf. And you could join us with the Nagunim. So the whole burden doesn't have to be only on Yoeli and Ohr Chozer. So let's start the Hachana. You want me to start it?
Yeah, maybe you can lead us.
Join us. Bye.
Hashem,